So, Sunrise on the Reaping. This is the fifth book in the Hunger Games lineup. It is a prequel. There's only one Hunger Games trilogy. There's no sequels as of yet. I didn't read the last book. I did watch the movie, and I kind of know what happens in the book and the differences between the book and the movie. I kind of feel like President Snow in the movie, if you know some of the stuff in the book, is a lot more justified in murdering like the girl who's leading him astray and making him abandon his family. I mean, yeah, it's Snow, but fundamentally, like, the guy did see certain events from the last book flesh out the character a lot. And in this book, he's barely fleshed out. He's like a character who's separate from the main character, who's living in a completely different environment from the POV character in Sunrise. So whatever you bring with you from the last book, whether it's disgust or sympathy because of the movie, it's kind of complicated because in the movie, like, you can imagine what he was thinking from the movie, but in the book, it's different from what you might imagine. So he seems more ugly from the book. You know, the fact that there's more stuff to this book can wildly alter your perception of this book, is what I'm trying to say. For my part, the Hunger Games trilogy, it's the first ever trilogy I listened to on audiobook. It was like a 34-hour binge listen. And like, I absorbed the world, so to speak. You know, I'm really bad with names, and I don't remember all the details, obviously. But it's kind of like a familiar place to come back to, obviously. And I feel like a new reader would probably struggle a bit because there's not enough extra detail for new readers. Like, all of a sudden, like, they're in like glass tubes being moved up to the place. Like, you would have seen all these things in trailers, but if you're very, very young and you don't know what the fuck they're talking about, I can clearly imagine how confused someone might be listening to this book or reading this book. Also, there is an issue with the Nevermore, with the poem, with the Raven. I'm not a big poetry guy, and the poetry kind of seems out of nowhere to me. Like, it's a 400-page book, and it's a very efficient book, and like, I kind of feel like it should have been something like 520 pages, and a decent chunk of those extra pages should have been devoted to building the image of the Raven or extending his conversations about poetry. Like there should have been more poetry in this book or less poetry in this book, depending on how you look at it. And a lot of the side characters, a lot of the characters around him, I kind of feel like they should have had more scenes to be fleshed out, because I did find myself being lost in various occasions. Who was who was who, what was what. But fundamentally, if you're not overly obsessed with details like that, if you're not overly focused on fully picturing the environment, if you kind of know what you're getting into, I do recommend this as a listen. I don't know what it feels like to fully read a 400-page book like this, because I only listen to it on audiobook. Like, I'm reading this other thing, and 40 pages of this other thing, completely different story. Like, I do feel like people who don't have a lot of time would very much prefer to use the audiobook, in my opinion, because it's efficient in what it's telling, but I'm not sure it's entirely worth it. Like 60 to 120 pages extra would have fleshed out the world a bit more for new readers. I feel like there should have been more done with the snakes. I feel like there should have been a little bit extra, a little bit more of a hook to keep you engaged. Now, the character of Plutarch, because of how he's present in this book, I kind of feel like the next book should be about him and really flesh him out. This book feels like an extended episode in an evolving world. But I really, really, really want like more visceral moments, more significant moments. Like, I do feel like Susan Collins needs to add a little bit more visual flair, visual texture to what she's writing. Like, the scenes with the deaths just don't hit as hard as they did in the original trilogy. And I kind of feel like because of how efficiently it's written, like, it's not really taking its time to show us all the emotions that would come with what happened at the end. Like, she's getting old, basically. I'm not trying to dunk on her, but like, there really should have been a little bit more visceral detail about what's happening to really hit the nail on the head and like really like show me more of what it is that the horrors that I'm witnessing here, like in my mind's eye. Okay, like there definitely should be a bit more of that here. I know it could be just like a cash grab, but it some people might call it a cash grab. It does feel a little bit like a cash grab, but it's like it's a decent enough episode of the story. But like, why am I here? I'm willing to pay attention to this world again, but like, why am I paying attention? Like, this is such an important character in the first book. Like, give me more details about the mom. Give me more details about the kid. Give me more details about what's like that. It does feel a little bit hollow for what it is. Like, a lot of people would have been waiting to figure out what happened during the 50th Hunger Games for like a generation. Like, it's been like 13 years since the movies. I definitely remember Hunger Games and Hunger Games reference in the first season of Vampire Diaries. That's like 16 years ago. I don't remember how old the books actually are, but they were massive and they did come around the time of Twilight. And I do feel like a lot of fans would probably feel a little bit let down because this book was only 400 pages, which is like, it is 400 fucking pages. Yeah, I'm being ridiculous in saying this, but like if you just send your mind's eye back to the moments of Katniss and the snow and the hunting, you kind of you remember that there's more of a feeling of dread, of like the world felt a little bit more real back then. And here it kind of it feels a little bit more like a fading dream, is what I'm saying. Like in your mind's eye, the first trilogy felt more visceral. So that could be an issue if you want to revisit the world. I definitely feel like there should be an extended edition of this book released sometimes in the next couple of years, like personally. And if they do adapt it, they should add more stuff to layer the world. Because, like, at some point there's like a description of, I can tell people apart by the colors, but then you didn't really set up the colors, and I don't know. It does kind of feel like certain boxes are being ticked on an outline that isn't fully set up in the moment. Like it's something that you would vaguely remember from memory, but it's not properly set up. Like, you know, it's like glimpses of the mind, but it's not the present. I want it to feel more like the present and not a remembrance of the past. Yeah, that I think is the clearest way I could possibly say it. I want it to feel more like it's the present as he's telling the story than it feeling like a remembrance of the story. Yeah, that's my final description of this book. It is a decent enough episode. There's nostalgia there, but I feel like things should be a bit more visceral. Okay, that's about it. Hope you liked my review. Good day.